Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to our session today on how to add voice and video services, messaging services, to your Android application. My name is Jason Koo. I am a developer advocate here at Sendbird. And if you haven't heard of Sendbird, we are one of the world's top communications platform as a service provider. And we have three primary products. We have Sendbird Calls, Chat, and Desk. Calls is our primary, our real-time voice, not real-time voice, sorry, our real-time chat messaging service. And I'll skip over to Desk. Desk is a product that's built kind of on top of our chat service, which adds a bunch of features and tooling to expand chat into a full customer service platform. And then Calls is what we'll be talking about today. This is our platform for providing voice and video services, which we'll be going over. And all three products are built on the same high performant, reliable, and secure global network. So that's Sendbird in a nutshell. Okay, so today, pretty straightforward. I'm going to go over the setup, which is basically the requirements necessary to get up and running with these services with Sendbird. I'll walk through the starter app that we have. Since we have limited time today, I didn't want to go through the entire process of creating the UI. So we're going to start with an app that has all the UI elements in place, and then I'll just focus on the code implementation in the third section of adding voice and video. And then we'll conclude with Q&A. And also, just as kind of advanced foreknotice, this is really kind of like a starter position, right? There's so many features and other sorts of add-ons that you can do for voice and video. We're just not going to have time to kind of cover it all, so we'll just get as far as allowing you to be able to make a call. Okay, so right into it. I'll be using Android Studio for showcasing code, and I'll be doing most of my coding here in Java, but you can equally do well in Kotlin and any IDE that you so choose. The other requirement is, of course, having a working and valid Sendbird account. If you don't have an account already, it's pretty simple to just sign up for a free 30-day trial. And the requirements for the sign up is pretty basic, right? Your name, email, and what region you're out of. Okay, so after you have access to a dashboard, and I'll show you my dashboard in a moment, but just to walk through this, the first thing you'll need to do is create an app. And the reason for creating an app, obviously, is so you can get your own app instance and app ID that will be used to access the platform. And of course, to separate your app's communications from any other app. Here next to the dashboard creation app, we'll get a dialog box that I'll walk through in a moment, just a few options there. And then after we've created our app, we're going to have to add some users, obviously, right? And so we'll just need two users for us today. We'll need someone who's doing the calling and the person receiving the call. And again, I'll walk through that. Okay, so let's see, before I do the app walkthrough, let me run you through the dashboard here. Okay, so once you've logged into the Sendbird dashboard, you'll see this view here. And down in the lower right is where you can create a new app. So I'll go ahead and create one. And since we're doing a calls demonstration, we'll select the chat and calls option. Now you can just start with the chat if you wanted to play with that and then kind of add calls later. So, don't feel like you'll have to choose one or the other at this moment. Okay, so I'm going to call this, we'll call this the DroidCon demo. And I'm going to choose the region that's closest to me, which is in the US. And then I'm just going to click confirm and give that a moment to create the app. And then once the app is created again, I'm going to create users. Okay, all right, so here's some basic information. Application ID is found right here at the top, upper left. This will be important later for adding it to the app when we run it. Okay, so users should be blank to start with. I'm just going to create one for myself. I'll just do lowercase and then regular name. And then I'm going to create one for my coworker, Tanaka. And okay, so only two are necessary. Oh, I guess we'll show a little bit more here. So you can add a profile image here, and of course through the platform API for when you create users through, say, another your own backend system, you can fill in this information. And then we also have the option for using tokens instead of using IDs, but we won't need that for today's example. Okay, so that's all we need from the dashboard, is just to have created an app and have a few users we can play around with. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the UI sample app. So this is what we will build upon. Okay, so here we're just going to have a sort of a simple login Fox kind of app. So here we'll put in application ID. Since this is just the starter app that doesn't have any of the actual underlying systems in place, we just put in anything at this point. This is just to show you how the UI works. I guess I have some permissions still in place. This main activity view, or this is actually a fragment inside a main activity. So this is where we're just going to put the ID of the person we're calling. And then we'll have two options. We can run a voice call, and the voice call will activate this activity, which is pretty straightforward calling view. Here we have the option of displaying the image of the person we're calling. And then, you could mute and then turn on volume control and then Bluetooth. We probably won't be hooking up any of these, but they're available in the UI if you wanted to go in and play with these. And then, of course, the next option is the video. Now, you can't see it here until we run it, but there's basically a giant view here where, or we'll be putting a view there, where we'll see the person that we're calling, their video stream, and then a small corner view for, checking out our own hairstyle as we're making this call. Okay, so that's it. That's it to this app, and we're gonna just add the underlying system to make this a working calling app. Okay, so back to my presentation real quick. Before I jump in too deep, if you're listening to this and you really like, you really like getting your hands on code like I do, you can go to this repo here and download all the code that I'm going to be working with. I've broken it up into two folders, a _start, which has that UI only app. And then I have a 2_complete, which is kind of a misnomer. It's not really a fully complete app, but it has the additional code, or at least has the starting code with Sendbird added so you can make a call, but it doesn't have all the full gamut of features. And I'll be talking about another sample that you can get access to get those additional code nuggets later. Okay, so anyways, this is the repo, and hopefully I have stalled talking about it long enough for you to copy it if needed. Otherwise, just look into the presenter notes later, and I'll add links to this there. Okay, all right. Now the blank app. Okay, so here's the starting app as it is from the repo. Okay. To not confuse everyone and myself, let me go to here. Okay, so this is the general steps that we're going to go through because I may go a little fast. So we've already created the app inside Sendbird. And so now with the code implementation, we'll, just like any other SDK, we're going to add the dependencies inside the requirements and manifest in the Android manifest, and then also in the build Gradle files. And then we're going to pick some place to initialize the SDK. Then we will need to authenticate, which you will want to call, of course, from your own sign-on process, but our library as well will need to be authenticated. And then we will set up some event handlers and then show you how to make a call. Okay, so back to the code. Okay, so first thing I'll do here is I'll add the permissions, and I'm going to copy and paste this because I will probably do a typo. Now there's only 3 permissions we need at the bare minimum to get started. And here I'm just internet, obviously, access network state. Yeah, we'll need that. And then camera, of course, to be able to see anything. Okay, so that's it for the manifest. Now in the module build.gradle file, let's see, this is big enough for you guys. In the build.gradle file here we're just going to add in the call for, oh, that's weird. Okay, so I must have accidentally let this in from the last time I practiced. So this is the implementation, the Sendbird calls library. And here I'll just sync in case I messed anything up. Okay, I always forget how fast that works now. Okay, so that's it for the dependencies, right? Library, Android manifest. Now, what I've done in this app to kind of simplify things a little is I created this abstract class called Sendbird helper. This is so that the UI app could work without actually any Sendbird code running. But what we have is in the base, well, I've got a base application to be the kind of container for the SDK's init sequence. So here it's abstracted here, calling the Sendbird helper to init, but if you look in the helper, this is just where we're going to put the init code for Sendbird. So you could put this in the base. You will probably want to put this in the base application directly, but this was just a convenience for running the blank app. Okay, so to run Sendbird, so what you're going to do is you're going to call Sendbird call, which is the main library, and we're just going to call init. And we're going to pass it in a context and the app ID from whatever's calling this. You can see here in the base application, what I've done is added. So later in the app, when we have the app ID, we're going to store it in shared preferences so that we don't have to add it every single time. But this is, of course, optional. You'll probably want to do this in an actual app. But anyways, so all you need is the context and the app ID to start. Now, this function returns a static Boolean, I believe. I don't know if I'm, yes. So you can actually, so if it were to fail, you could actually track that. Oh, got a new way of spelling if. So if this failed, you could handle this gracefully in some form or fashion. So here we would guess we return false, and then otherwise return true. Okay, so that's it for the init call. So again, after the library's init, to actually make use of it, the user has to authenticate. Now, the authentication method I've put inside this the sign-in manual activity. This activity is quite large for handling all the different UI elements needed, but the only part that we really need to monitor is the part where the sign-in button's on-click handler. And in here, so after we're checking that we have an app ID and a user ID actually inputted, we're going to call the authentication. And again, this is calling my abstraction class, but the abstraction class, as you can see, is should be empty. Now, here I'm doing an extra user ID null check, which isn't really needed. I'll just leave it for now. Okay, so here for Sendbird authenticate, we will call the library again, and we'll just call authenticate. And here we're going to pass in authentication parameters and then a callback. So the authentication, I think we can just pass in a new authentication params. And here we're going to pass in the user ID that we got. And then the callback. And the callback gives us back a user and an error. So if we, of course, if we get an error, we can print this out. And handle it if we want to. I guess we'll just return here. Okay. So if we're successful, we do want to tell the handler that we are successful. And so return true. Oh, yes, this is where I should tell the handler that we failed here. Okay. So that's it for authentication. So now that the user's authenticated, we can now make calls to the library to make calls and receive calls. So this part, okay, so normally I would kind of showcase the voice first because the voice call is it's simpler, but it really, I mean, it's the same object to make a call for voice or video. The only thing is video requires the extra requirement of these view hookups. But just for sake of time, I'm just going to focus on video for now. Plus, demoing voice with just myself is kind of difficult. Okay, so we will go to, I guess, let me show you the, so the dial fragment is this view here. So the dial fragment is within the main activity that just got kicked over after we signed in. So in the dial fragment, you can see we've just got the user ID field and these two buttons. So as you can see from all this code, this is again handling most of the UI stuff, actually handling all the UI components. And the parts that we're interested in adding the Sendbird calls are in the two button callbacks for these two buttons here. So here, if we're successful, we're just going to push the video activity and the voice activity that I had showed you earlier. And when we do that, we're going to pass in the callee ID that we have entered here. And the reason for that is so that the SDK knows who to connect us, the caller, to which callee. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the video activity, and in here, so the views that we're going to connect the video streams to is a custom class available through Sendbird's SDK. And we're going to have to add this in a few places. So I'm going to open up our layout and bring in our video call here. So here, I've logged here, we're going to add two of these Sendbird videos, one for seeing the video of the person we're talking to, and then one for seeing ourselves. Okay, so let me put the first one here so you can see. Okay, so here, calling the library for the Sendbird video view, and we'll just call this one the full screen, and we're just going to match the parent for this, and I think we're going to do the same for the small one. And we're going to call this one the video view, I guess small, and match parents. Let's give this a, oh yeah, let's give this a box too so we can see it. So I'm going to add call frame. Okay, so this is the only updates that we need to add to the layout XML. And then in the actual video activity, we'll of course make use of it. So here, okay, so I'll make an instance here. So private Sendbird video view, right? And we'll call this video view full screen. And we'll do a small one, so video view and video small. And oh, while we're here, I'll go ahead and add a direct call object. So the direct call, actually, I'll come back to this so that way it contextually makes sense. Okay, so here, we're just going to link the videos. We'll find view by ID, full screen, and then small one. Small. Okay. So these are hooked up, and we will want to, okay. All right, so the views are hooked up. Now the dial method. So I originally had this in the helper, but there's quite a bit of code to add. It was actually not helpful to put this as an abstraction. So I'm just gonna put this all into the video view here, although the code in the repo actually has this all inside the helper class. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to create the parameters that we're going to put into the direct call thing, direct call object, sorry. Dial params, and I guess we'll call it params, and we'll do new params, and this takes one argument, which is the callee ID. Okay, so this dial parameter, this is the object that you would assign for is a voice call. So true. So for video call. So if this were just a voice call, you would just set this, of course, to false. So the underlying call object is the same object. And set call options, and we're just going to use the default call options. And then we're going to put this into a direct call object. So this is where I wanted to put this originally. Private direct call. Okay, and so the call is the object that handles the actual connection. Okay, so after we've got the parameters, we're going to initialize the call. It's a new call. Straight to Sendbird call dial. Okay, so we'll call the dial function with the parameters, and then the callback. Actually, we can. Okay, so programs. Okay, so the dial command for Sendbird calls takes those parameters that we had up here above, and also this dial handler. And the dial handler has to have this onResult function. And I don't think yes, okay. So normally I would want to add a log here. We'll go ahead and skip that today. Boop. Okay. And then we could do this before or after, but we want to set those views that we created earlier to, wrong way, to the call. So remote video view to the full screen, and then the small one to local, set local video small. Okay. And then we want to add a call listener. And we'll do the default direct call listener. Okay, so the listeners have two necessary functions. There's quite a few more, which I'll just show you briefly in here. So you got a couple custom options here for reacting to, different triggers in life cycle events with the call. But to the bare minimum, though, is just when we connect and then when we end the call. Actually, we're not going to do anything with this today. So this is where you could kind of affect your UI or other systems. Okay, so then once that's all set up, we will just start the video stream, and then that's it. So we got this hang up function that is triggered by the red hang up button, right? So we'll just put the call here, and we will end call here. Okay, so that should be all we need. Okay, I'm just walking through this again because I usually forget some part. This looks pretty straightforward. Oh, yes, inbound listener. Okay, well, okay, I think we can run it without that for now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this on my Android device here. And let me show you my Android device. Oops. So we'll put this emulator aside, and we will spin up Visor on this Android device. Okay. And give it a go. Okay, find view. Okay, so this is where having folks in a live audience would be handy. They could tell me why sometimes this layout view doesn't update right away. Sometimes I've had to wait a couple minutes before this sees, oh, well, in this case, it's not that. In this case, it was a typo. Video view small, at least I hope. But I've had this happen in the past where I'll add this to the XML, I'll add these components to the XML file, and it just gives me build errors. But looking good this time. Okay. All right, so here is the updated basic starter app with the code that we just did on my Android demo phone here. So what I'm going to do is grab that application ID that was on my dashboard. So again, up here in the upper left, I'm just going to copy this and then go to the app here. I'm going to paste it through Visor because that's faster than me typing this. And I'm going to log in as, I'll log in this Android phone as Tanica, because I've got another device where I'm logged in as myself. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'll make a call to Jason, which will come to my personal phone. do voice call or video call. Okay, so if everything works according to plan, I should get a call on my phone. Well, okay, so I'll need a moment. So my phone is using a different application ID, so I'm not getting that call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, all right, I'm going to make use of this emulator that I've got here. So I'll shut this down and I'll build it to the emulator as well. While that's happening, I will reset my phone just in case. And re-download the app. Okay, this one's up and running. Okay, so same thing. Application ID and so here I was, I have to restart this. Okay. So this one I'll sign on as Tanika. And this one I'll sign on as me. Oops. Actually, this might not work because I have not hooked up the listener. Yes. So, okay. So let me switch back to my phone here. So we've only got the code set up for making outbound calls. To receive incoming calls, you've got to have push notifications set up, which I haven't gone and shown yet. So let me just re-download this app real quick and put it on my phone so I can show you the outbound calls working. Open, sign in with ID. Okay, so I need to copy this again. Apologies. Paste, I'll sign in as myself. Okay, so now I should be able to call myself. Yes. Access my camera, microphone, all that good stuff. Okay, so you can see here, I have failed to connect this view properly, but you can see I'm receiving video on my personal phone here. And here's my setup here. Cool. Okay. Let me turn this off here. Oops, that was the wrong turn off button. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's basically all it took in a really convoluted long pathway to get outbound calls set up on an Android phone. So again, you just need to initialize the SDK, which amounts to this single line call here, and then authenticating for the single line call here. And then to make the call, we've got, so this part's a little more complicated, right? So we're calling the dial command, but we have to pass it in the dial parameters and then be able to handle what happens when that dial takes effect. And then you want to add in listeners for on-connected, on-ended to kind of get the full lifecycle, full UI system in place. And then also hook up these video views. Now here, I'm not entirely sure why that small video view didn't quite work. I'm wondering if I messed up my XML file somewhere. Okay, well, I won't spend too much time trying to debug here. But I can show you the code from the completed project that's in that repo, which is very similar, but a little bit different. I put in all the Sendbird code into that abstraction class to keep this code here simpler. So if you so desired, you could rip out components and it should work fairly with little heartache, hopefully. But I don't immediately see why that one didn't quite work. But I will go ahead and run this just for comparison, and we'll do this on, I guess we'll do this on the emulator. Okay, so here we go again. And I'll sign on as myself again. Oh, well, I kind of wanted to be Tanika on this one, didn't I? Oops. Okay, so I'm going to call myself again, and this one hopefully will have the video hooked up. Okay, so here we can see the video working, except that the webcam off of my laptop is canted. So another thing for me to address. But yes, now I'm very curious why this version didn't quite work. So anyways, I'll take a look at it and I'll update the repo well, the two-part already works, but I'll want to address the rotation on that. Oh, I know why, because the laptop's on landscape versus portrait, that's why. Okay, oh, I guess while we're here talking about running emulators, if you want to use the webcam in your emulator, and most of you may already know this, but I was somewhat semi-excited to figure this or learn how to do this. So the default configuration for your emulators is going to be emulated, right? Which is, it'll just pump out a interesting pixelated Android video. But here you just switch it to webcam if you wanted to obviously use your webcam for actual video stream testing. So just a bit of news there. Okay. All right, so that's it in terms of showing you how to make a call. For the incoming calls is requires again push notifications. So if you want to see an example of that, I would recommend checking out our Quick Start application. So this repo, this app here is a near duplicate of the app that you can download from the Google Play Store. And then get the kind of this full starting comprehensive app. So all the additional buttons like the Bluetooth, the audio setup, and mute features, all those extra features you would want in a voice and video call service is all hooked up in this demo app. And it also shows, or it also includes setting up and running push notifications so that you can receive calls, whether you have the app open or not. So definitely invite you to check this out. Let's see, I believe, yes. So the bigger view of, oh, nope, that's, that is not the repo. So I'll post the repo for this code up in the presenter notes as well. Okay. And I guess while we're here, I'll go ahead and actually show you this app. Why not while we're here? So quick start here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put this on my Android phone. And in this Quick Start app, you can actually put in the application ID here in the code, which is, of course, what you're going to want to do in your own application rather than have a UI to take in, any application ID. But just for kind of easy experimentation and debugging, this app also has that login screen. Okay, I think this is booted up. Okay, so two options when you run this quick start is you can actually sign in with a QR code that is available through our studio, our call studio here. I'm not going to walk through this, but this basically gives you the ability to test and run calls right in your browser rather than spinning up a sample app or building your own app to get it up right. So you can test right away with this. Okay, so here I'm going to sign in with ID again, and hopefully this is still, yep. And I'll use Tenica again. So we'll allow everything. And now, since this one has push notification set up, I should be able to call from my phone to it. Oops, let me spell Tenica's name correctly. Oh, I might not. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's not going to work as I expected because this demo phone does not have, it's not fully set up. Okay, but if I do the outbound call, here we can see now portrait video is correct, and these other features here Now, get that out of the way. Is I should be able to switch cameras. Oh, why is that camera not working? Here we go. So I can switch cameras. You know, I can turn off camera, I can mute, and then you can't hear me. So yeah, all the UI features that I didn't show how to implement here is included into that quick start app. Okay, I think I've probably ended a little bit faster than I was expecting, but yeah, why don't we spend extra time on the Q&A then? Let's see here. Okay, so Slido, I believe, is coming up. Okay. So when you have questions, I think it takes a minute for everyone's Slido access to kind of come up. So again, this is the repo for the demo that I presented today. And while we're waiting, let me go over some, I guess, typical Q&A things. So yes, I can't present the queue. So I was going to say, if you start with a chat app and then you want to add in calls, there's on the left, there's a section for, it just says calls, and there's literally just a single button that says like activate. So you can switch calls on and off pretty easily. Okay, I think a question came in. Oh, okay, yes. So yeah, the very common question of being able to switch between the two. Okay, another question that I get often is offline. Well, not offline videos is not a thing. Offline chats is what I was thinking. Video recordings is a feature that's also built into the SDK. So if you wanted to, obviously record videos, it would record locally. So it doesn't record to Sendbird system if you activate that system, but that can be handy for depending on your use case. Okay, can I combine chat and voice services into one app? Yes, you certainly can. So, so the libraries are separate, right? So we have a calls library for initiating these calls, and we have the chat SDK for adding and managing chat messages. But the two libraries can easily talk to each other, and you can share the same ID between both. So you can have chats, you can have the UI within chat trigger a video call, and then vice versa. If you wanted to see an example of that, I've actually got a repo, which I'll put a link into the speaker's note as well too. So if you go back and look at DroidCon America, we did exactly that setup. We took a chat app and we triggered a voice call with it. So while you're talking with someone, you could just switch over immediately and then kind of come back to a chat. The call studio, oh yeah, so the call studio, I went through real briefly just a minute ago. If you're interested in learning more about like using Call Studio, I invite you to check out our Code Cafe tomorrow. Tomorrow, just a little bit earlier than this session was, I think about an hour earlier. So I'll also post a link to that event in the presenter notes. But yeah, definitely check that out. Casey Kern, who is one of our esteemed colleagues who runs the calls development team, he will show Call Studio and how you can make use of that quick start app that I lightly talked about. Okay, I think we still have a few minutes. Oh, we still have quite a few minutes. Okay, so let's see. Some other common questions I get is will voice and video work cross-platform? So yes, so we've got libraries for Android, obviously, iOS and JavaScript. So you can write it on web. So you can talk to pretty much all the major devices out there. Like today, I showed off my personal device using an iPhone here and my Android phone, and then I didn't demonstrate Call Studio, but that used web. Okay. Okay, I see a different Slido screen, so I guess I'll continue with some other questions that I sometimes get. I talked about recording video earlier. So one follow-up question that comes up with videos is like, how much memory does this video take? So I think in general, we've clocked it at about 20 megabytes per minute of video. So it's not too heavy unless you're recording like hours and hours of video. And I believe I have to double check, but I believe there's an API for you to extract that as well if you need to. And you can record both audio and or video and or audio. So there's different combinations of recordings you could do, right? You could record yourself, just audio or video, or audio and video, or both persons audio stream. So I recommend checking out the doc to get all the different permutations and combinations that might suit your particular use case. Okay. Let's see, offline. Okay, I think that those are my usual call-related questions. I guess if no one else has any additional questions, I'd just like to invite everyone to our Ask Us Anything session, which comes up, I believe, just after this session. And we'll have a lot of experienced sales engineers and some product managers on there that have been with Sendbird for quite some time and can and we'll be able to answer any of your questions you've got regarding the chat services platform. Okay, if there are no additional questions, I think that's it.